pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. Here I am with another Friday Reads, and this one's outdoors. Let's see how it goes. A few gusts of wind, but they're very mild compared to the other day when I abandoned the attempt. So I hope I can get through this without a bunch of wind-related noise problems. Let's see how it goes, because I've had kind of a dickens of a time getting this thing started, this filming. A certain someone couldn't get themselves out of bed this morning on Friday, not me, so he didn't leave until 1 p.m. and I usually like to do this first thing in the morning, so here it is about 2 p.m. I think. And I got halfway here. It's about a 7-minute walk with my heavy microphone in my bag and realized I wasn't carrying my tripod, so I had to go back. So here I am, and now the wind is gusting, so let's see how it goes. Otherwise, I'm delighted to be here, and I have a lot to say. I'm still getting the hang of the new format, so I've decided the natural order should be, first I'm going to tell you about books I've finished. Then I'm going to tell you about books I bailed on, and finally sometimes I will have a comment on a book in progress. I do today. And finally, books I've started. That is the logical order, is it not? So let's get started. I've had quite a week. I have only finished one book this week. Let me maybe say a word about that. My count of books is maybe half of what it was at this time last year. I haven't compared. And you know what? I don't care. My attitude towards that, is it competitiveness? Well, that's just it. I think I used to feel competitive about it, and that was motivating me to read more, and how stupid is that? So I think the number of books I read in 2018 is going to be maybe half or 3/4 of what it was last year. And I think I'm going to have the best reading year of my life. I mean, it's still going to be a respectable number. I just have let go of a lot of that, and I'm just reading longer books, and I'm reading books more slowly, and really focused more on the quality, and feels good. And, you know, when I bail on this many books, sometimes that means that takes the place of, you know, if I read half of a book and then bail, that takes away from the amount of time that I have, but I also, in the long run, it allows me to stumble upon or find more really good books, because I don't waste that much time on books I'm not enjoying. And usually I bail quite quickly. So, all of which is to say that I did finish one book this week, one of the ones on audio, Tokyo Romance by Ian Buruma. I mentioned it a couple Friday reads ago. It was a 4-star read for me. This is a memoir newly published this year. Ian Buruma is a writer of nonfiction. I don't think he writes a lot of memoir, but most of it's popular history. And he maybe started out as a film critic and came to Japan and lived in Japan for several years in the 1970s. I learned a lot about Japanese film, which is something that I'm deeply disinterested in, but he made me more interested in Japanese film. But more than that, he talks about the skanky side of Tokyo. And he himself seemed to be quite bisexual in this part of his life, but maybe recently not so much. I don't know any more than that, and I don't really care. I didn't really care about him as a person. I don't like memoir, but he made it a valuable read for me because he gave so much cultural commentary and talked a lot about being a gaijin or a foreigner in Japan. So I really connected with that. He was friends with some famous foreigners in Japan. I enjoyed all of that very much. I think this is a book that I did it on audio. It was well narrated by Buruma himself, but it is a book that I would want to get a print copy of, because I think there's a lot of things that I would refer back to. There was a lot of really perverted Japanese slang, talking about different parts of the culture at that time. There was a lot of good stuff in there. So that was the book I finished. Now for my bails. You better sit down, both because you're going to be surprised perhaps by the first one, and also because I have more than a few to tell you about from this week. Robert of Barter Hordes, my reputation shall forthwith be restored as the Empress of Bailing. So the first one, and I'm going to still keep a bit of a mystery because there is a vlog coming in the next while, but I bailed on The Sea by Iris Murdoch. while it started out really good, by about just before the halfway mark, well, I started hating it about a quarter of the way through and read it up until about the halfway mark and then bailed. That's all I'm going to say. There was many things about it that I really loved at first, but what I hated quickly overwhelmed me. I don't remember hating a book as intensely as I hate this book. So, stay tuned. Next! This was a book for Mel of Mel's Bookland Adventure book club. A book of short stories from Kuwait. The Hidden Light of Objects by Mai El-Nakib. Again, I thought the writing was really good at first, but I also think that I started reading it very late one night when I was tired. And when I started reading the next morning, I thought, this isn't very good. And no, the writing was okay, but it was really flowery. So in my Goodreads review, I likened it to being trapped in an elevator with somebody wearing too much perfume. That's how the writing started to affect me, so I didn't get very far into it. Maybe partway through the second story. But it wasn't for me. I think other people in the book club are enjoying it, so that's great, but it wasn't. I couldn't continue with it. I also bailed, and I kind of predicted this last week, I bailed on Oreo by Fran Ross. It was just too satirical for me. I don't like biting satire where there's no kindness or no space for me to feel kindly towards anybody. No, I don't. So, I didn't get very far in that either. She was an African-American writer, Fran Ross. She died quite young, like in her 50s, 20 years ago. She had also been a writer for Richard Pryor. Very funny, but I don't like biting humor. I can't. That just makes me sick. One of my earliest bails, I don't think I got all the way to the end of the first short chapter, was the Mary Stewart novel, Thorny Hold. And I was going to be doing a buddy read of this with Ange of Beyond the Pages and the upper echelons of booktube royalty. But let me read you the opening paragraph, because it's lovely. The writing is really great. As Anne said, her writing style is quite similar to Barbara Pym's, so I had no complaint about the writing. But this is the opening paragraph. I suppose that my mother could have been a witch if she had chosen to, but she met my father, who was a rather saintly clergyman, and he cancelled her out. She dwindled from a potential Morgan Le Fay into an English vicar's wife, and ran the parish, as one could in those days, more than half a century ago, with an iron hand disguised by no glove at all. And I loved that opening paragraph, and I quoted it on Instagram and Litzy. I put quotes on Litzy. I used to put up 5 or 10 a day. I'd type them up in a fancy font maker app and find a picture to go with it and put it up, and I still do it, but I used to do it 10 quotes a day, and now I do maybe 1 or 2 a day, or not even that sometimes. But so I put it up on Litzy, and some of my Litzy friends said, I love that, but Sean, that doesn't sound like a book for you. Did you read the synopsis? Because on Litzy you can click on the link and read the synopsis just like they have on Goodreads. Do you know that it's about magic? And my heart just sank, because I hadn't bothered to check any of that. It was just like, I read some Mary Stewart when I was a teenage girl, and I remember liking it, and Ange was doing it, and I invited myself, but I never did check the synopsis, and I can't read books about magic. No. I hate Harry Potter. I hate all that stuff. Fantasy. So my heart sank, but I kept reading, and my voice, I guess I raised my voice, and that lady's glaring at me. Is she in curiosity, or she's gone on her way? I continued to try to be optimistic because the writing was lovely, like you can see. And then this young girl is talking about her mother, and it becomes clear that her mother actually had aspirations to be a witch before she married the vicar, and her sister seems to be a mysterious witch. And my mind kept flashing to Bewitched, which I loved as a kid, but it's like, I can't take a book with magic in it seriously. I can't! So I bailed and apologized to the BookTube royal family for bowing out on the day one. As Ange told me later, that most of her books don't have a magical element, so I hope to take part in another one. Those were my bails! And boy, in a minute I'm going to tell you about some books that replaced them that I'm really excited about. so far. But I also wanted to tell you about, and I wanted to bring the physical copy of the book, so just to give you more of a sense of how my day's been going. My apartment has so many wobbly towers of books now that are so high that every move I make is a potential disaster. When I'm so absent-minded, I don't pay attention, and when I see a problem, I don't deal with it, so then the problem, becomes the disaster it had the potential to become. So yesterday when I came home, one tower of books toppled over. Probably there was maybe a small earthquake, or for whatever reason it was really wobbly. I think it had some DVD cases in the midst of it, where just the stability of it was not stable, and it toppled over when I was gone and knocked my expensive microphone onto the floor. So it was a big mess when I came home, but the microphone works, as you can hear. I tested it, and I put the books back on a slightly less wobbly pile. But I've also got them piled on my work thing by the computer, and the door of my big closet is ajar, and the small table that has 3 wobbly piles, 20 books or more on each pile, is against that door. So in order to move the table to open the door would just require more energy than I have. All of which is to say that 3 books fell behind the computer desk and up against that door, and I'm just going to leave them there until I move, I think, because I don't have the gumption to deal with it, and I don't dare ask Kenji. Kenji's really good about taking care of those little practical things that either because of my bad back or my childishness I don't deal with. But I think if I asked him to recover books from behind the dusty old, whatever, he would balk at that. So anyway, one of them is the novel that I've been reading. There's a crow up there breaking twigs off the branch, and they're falling down. That's fine, just don't poop on me. He's not right above me at the moment, but yes, now he is. Go away! Go away! Thank you. God, I'm really causing... Thank you. Bye-bye. Jesus, I'm really causing a commotion. Japanese people don't like loud noises. One of the books that fell back there today, which I now will not find again for months, is the Polish novel that I've been reading since, I believe, last November. An 1890 or 1895 novel out of Poland called The Doll, in English, by Bolesław Prus. And the reason it's not urgent for me to retrieve the book, it's a beautiful oversized paperback, interesting shape, and I love the feel of it in my hand. But I realized this week, one of the reasons that it's been taking me forever to get through this, I'm now a third of the way through, but I've done about 7 or 8% in the last week, is because the book, it's a big 700-page book. I think it's 688 pages. And it's just too much to bring it when I go to work. So I only read it at home. It's a book that is really hard to get back into, because there's so many characters with such Polish-sounding names, obviously, and I get really confused. And so I page back, and I've read sections of this 2 or 3 times just to re-immerse myself in it, and that is wonderful. I'm not complaining about that. But finally it dawned on me to check on Kindle, and the Kindle version is cheap, so I bought it this week. So now it'll be with me wherever I go. So that's one benefit. But the other benefit is, for when I need to refresh my memory about who this character is, that is one of the best things about an e-book, is that you can do that in that lightning speed. So I am going to town with Bolesław Prus's novel, The Doll, now, and really enjoying it. I'm reading a bit almost every day. But 2%, so I don't know how many pages that is, but I do 2% at a sitting, and that's 45 minutes, because it's kind of dense. The writing style shifts and changes throughout, but just because it's such a foreign culture to me, and I guess I'm paying that much more attention. That boy is so cute. It's taking me a long time. I wanted to read, and I'm not going to do any setup for this. I could, but you don't need it. You just need to listen to this, and you will want to read this novel. this 1890s Polish novel. This is the beginning of a letter that I read yesterday. Dear cousin, if you will forgive my unfortunate marriage, I in return will forgive your references to my wife, who has already teased the life out of me. As a material symbol of eternal peace between us, I am sending you the tooth which Wokulski shot because of what, I think, I venture to say to you at the races. I assure you, my dear cousin, that it is the very same tooth with which I have in the past bitten you, and that I will no longer bite. That's my favorite quote from the novel right there, and if that fills you with even a portion of the glee with which it fills me, you should try this book too, and I would recommend doing it on Kindle just because of the reasons I said, and that, it's the same edition, same translator. So, wow, this is going to be a long Friday reads. I'm getting chatty. So I've started 4 books. The first one on audio. This is one that I actually don't remember where I heard about it, but I've heard nothing but good about it. But the most recent time that I heard about it was on Barter Hordes. He did a full review. I'll put a link in the show notes. Everything Here is Beautiful by Mira T. Lee, another January 2018 release. The audio version is wonderful so far. I'm not so far in, but I can just really tell this is a Sean book. This is the only other 2018 book that I've read that I really loved, aside from Akwaeke Emeze's Freshwater. It's about 2 sisters, 2 Chinese-American sisters, one of whom is struggling with mental illness, and it's really well done. It has humor, and it's really moving, and it's just, so far, it's really enjoying it. Talk about a backlist. This is a 1945 British novel by a gay British writer. In Youth is Pleasure by Denton Welch. Have any of you read this? He's been on my radar for 20 years. I had a book, maybe I still have it in a box somewhere in Canada, but I had a book of his journals. Beautiful hardcover edition. I'll put the icon up here just to show you, because he was also a bit of a painter, and I believe the cover image was a self-portrait that he had done. And I never read it, and I've kind of been collecting his novels over the years, and I just picked this up, since I started my channel, I think I hauled this. It's a short little 145-page novel, again, 1945, and it's about a 15-year-old boy. I don't know how overtly gay he's going to end up becoming, but there's certainly a lot of homoeroticism and sexuality that is understated and fascinating. Like, I'm not sure I love the writing style. It's okay, it's a little strange, and the prose doesn't consistently sing, but the things that are in this novel, I guess when I read older novels, I kind of read a little bit differently, and I'm so curious to things like how is sexuality and gender portrayed, and that maybe takes precedence over do I like the prose. The prose here is fine. I don't want to give you any other idea, but it's not the prose that I'm fascinated by, that I'm enjoying. And look at that cover, like that just kind of, that's him. That's kind of the picture Denton Welch is painting of him. So it's early days. No, I'm about almost a third of the way through it. It's fascinating. So definitely will be doing a full review on this whenever I finish it. I have had this as an ebook in my Kindle for 6 months, a year, I can't remember, but a long time, and I finally started it. August Town by Kay Miller, a Jamaican novelist. I believe he's gay, but I haven't done a lot of research. But when I checked on YouTube, it seemed like there was a lot of gay-themed titles to the videos he appeared in. But anyway, I guess I better double-check that before I start spreading rumors. So far, this is not a gay novel, but and it's so early. I'm a couple chapters in. It's a short little novel about an old blind woman in one of the ghettos of Kingston, Jamaica. Set in modern times, but it's flashing back to her earlier life, and I'm just getting into the childhood section, and it's really interesting too. That's what the writing is, really interesting and lovely. We'll see. It's been on my list forever, and I've heard nothing really but good about it. So, and a little bit of a story with this one. I also started the audiobook Breath Eyes Memory by Edwidge Danticat. I did her short stories Crick Crack on audio last year and quite enjoyed them, but I felt while I was reading them that I would probably enjoy her novels more. The short stories are okay, but I bet you she's a much better novelist. And this is her most famous novel from 1998. It's about a young Haitian girl whose mother had left the island for New York City when she was a baby, I think. She's being raised by an aunt and other family members, and then she gets sent to her mother's at the age of 12 or 9, I'm not sure. And I just listened to the first chapter, and I loved it. So I expected to, but yeah, I certainly loved it. So the little problem I'm having with that, I'm having a bit of trouble with Scribd, and I hope it's just a temporary thing, but things are disappearing. I had this audiobook bookmarked in my library within Scribd for a year, maybe 2, and when I went to play it, to start it the night before last, it wasn't there. So I did a search of Edwidge Danticat, and there was a few things by her, but not this novel. So then I added the title of the novel to the search, and then it came up, but it came up as a future release, like not available now, but I think it was later in April. That's weird. I've had it saved for, it's been available for, I had just checked my list like a week before and it was still there, and what's going on? But I could play it. Even though it said it was going to be released later in April, I could still play it, so I listened to the first chapter. And then yesterday I went to listen to chapter 2 and it was gone again, and none of that worked. The text searches with the title and author, it wasn't listed as a future release, it's just gone. So I've sent a message to Scribd, and they'll help me, I'm sure, but that has happened to me a couple times in the last month, weird stuff like that. I think that they're just going through growing pains, and I'm still very much of a fan unless things get worse or they aren't helpful about it, but disappointed because I was itching to continue. So if this is going to be a long-term problem, I'll just keep that on hold, or I see it's cheap to buy on Kindle, but I was enjoying the auto narration, so I'm not sure what I'll do. All of which is to say, I started it, I'm enjoying it, and circumstances beyond my control are preventing me from continuing at the moment. So that is my lovely weekend reading. I've had a Bale massacre, but also done some really great reading. So how about you? What's up for you this weekend, reading-wise or otherwise? Thanks for watching.